So today we start our overview of the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. The fourth chapter is called Transcendental Knowledge. So we have heard in the previous chapter that spiritual life means performing sacrifice for Vishnu, Krishna. Or in other words, performing devotional service to the Supreme Lord. But because of the contamination of our mind, senses, and intelligence, that we are unable to fix our mind on Krishna, that this contamination makes us identify with the body. So we have heard yesterday that lust is the enemy number one, and lust makes us identifying with the body. Lust means attraction for things in this world for the sake of enjoyment of a temporary body, mind, that but the cure to that, Krishna said, is using our intelligence based on transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge gives us the possibility to understand how to act as a spirit soul. And if the intelligence is grounded, fixed in that transcendental knowledge, and then it can instruct the mind and senses to act spiritually. But for this we need transcendental knowledge. We need to know who we are, what's the goal of life, how to attain that goal of life. That therefore Krishna has spoken this Bhagavad-Gita. So fourth chapter will give us the basis of this transcendental knowledge. We have on the screen here an overview of the fourth chapter. So in the beginning of the fourth chapter, Krishna will speak about Bhagavad-Gita, the importance of Bhagavad-Gita, the origin of Bhagavad-Gita, and how to understand Bhagavad-Gita. And then from 4 to 11, he will speak about himself. This is the first time Krishna will speak about himself and reveal really who he is and what his position is. And then after that, Krishna will speak about his pure devotees. How they are like him, they don't have material desires. And then in the next section, he explains how to become free from the reactions of one's activities. He will explain what karma is, vikarma, akarma, different kinds of karma. And after that, he will speaking about different kinds of sacrifices one can do for Krishna, for different people in different positions. But then he explains, but to do that sacrifice, one must take the help of a spiritual master and serve the spiritual master and inquire from him. And when one follows the instructions of the spiritual master, one will come on the boat of transcendental knowledge and be able to cross over this material existence and attain eternal life. And then at the end of the Bhagavad-Gita, of this chapter, Krishna says, yes, one who has faith in these instructions, such a faithful person, that he will make quickly advancement and attain the desired goal. But the faithless, those who don't have faith in my instructions, Krishna says, will not get happiness in this world, and not in this life and not in the next life. So the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is, based on this knowledge, that be aware of your real self, your spiritual self, and act according to your real self. Next slide. Now, Krishna will first, in this first section of 3 verses, he will speak first in the first verse about the history of this transcendental knowledge, which is history of Bhagavad Gita, how it must be received, and the qualifications for understanding it. So the first verse of is Iman Vishvasvatehayam Bhaktavam Amavyam Vivashvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. The personality of God, it said, I instructed this imperial science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu instructed it to Ikshvaku. Next verse. So that's the origin of this verse. But in this verse, it said, Bhaktavam am avyayam. Avyayam. It said imperishable knowledge. Avyayam has also, it's imperishable, it's eternal. This knowledge, it always existed, it existed eternally, and it is ever fresh. Avyayam. We will see Bhagavad Gita is ever fresh. You read Bhagavad Gita, and then you read it again, it's like you read a different book. Why? Because by reading it, you become purified. Your consciousness becomes more elevated, a little. And next time, you see a little more, you understand a little deeper. I remember first time when I read Bhagavad Gita, I did not understand why this Krishna says this and then that again. But after many years, I start to understand all these connections, and it becomes very sublime. So it's always fresh because it's eternal. That it's Bhagavad Gita is like Krishna, is always youthful, fresh. You never see a picture as Krishna as an old man. On the Battle of Kurukshetra, he's 120 years old, and he looks still a man of 16 years. That he never grows older. His body changes from youth, boyhood, youth, adult, and then, but then he doesn't grow older anymore. That is eternally fresh. Next slide. So, in what ways can we inject our daily life with the experience of continuous freshness? That, well, if you are, as long as you are regularly connected with this Bhagavad Gita, you feel this freshness. These words are not just ordinary Sanskrit. These are Krishna's words. If you repeat these verses in Sanskrit, you will find this freshness this experience, it's very sublime. If you know Bhagavad-Gita, and you think through Bhagavad-Gita, your life becomes very different. So every day you can read a verse of Bhagavad-Gita. I make every morning this podcast, 5 minutes, one principle of Bhagavad-Gita. If you just hear that, or you study one verse in the morning, you will feel that this becomes alive, Bhagavad-Gita becomes alive in your life. That it gives a constant inspiration. Next verse. Here we see a bridge. This knowledge is like a bridge between the material and the spiritual world. Krishna disappeared 5,000 years ago, but he left this bridge for us to go from the material to the spiritual world, to go from the world of mortality to the eternal world. Is that not nice that he leaves this bridge? Who wants to cross over this bridge? No one? Only a few. Yeah, you must become eager, otherwise you will not cross over it. You must really want it. And if you really want it, you learn the Bhagavad-Gita. How can you apply Bhagavad-Gita if you don't know the verses? You must know the verses, and then you have knowledge. And then by hearing classes on it, you know how to use these verses. Your life becomes very sublime. For devotees, life of death, I will learn Bhagavad-Gita. Although the memory is very weak, very weak. I have a very weak memory, really weak. But by repeating, if I repeat a verse 1,000 or 2,000 times, I start to remember it. So I'm doing that, and I'm remembering it. Krishna gives me the remembrance after 1,000 times repeating. I start to know something. So there's no hope. There's always hope, even if you have a weak memory. That we have weak memories because we have a very sinful past. That's all. So Krishna leaves us this bridge. Why does he do that? Because he loves us. It's out of love. Next verse. It's a supreme legacy of immortal love. Krishna loves us, and he gives us this gift. So, reflections. To what extent do we realize Lord Krishna's love for each of his separate part and parcels? How can we develop this awareness? So Krishna, he loves us, and he wants us to love him. That's all. And this Bhagavad-Gita was spoken by Krishna. It is said here in the purple that Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago. That's a long time. Huh? And Krishna spoke it to who? Remember to who? Vivasvan. Who was Vivasvan? The sun god. What was the occupation of the sun god? Yeah, I mean, what does he do? He was a Kshatriya, a ruler. He was a ruler of a planet. And Krishna spoke to him. What kind of body has the sun got? Does he have a body like us? A very fiery body. One can say, how can have one a body of fire and live in fire? Think about it. How can one have the body of a fish and live in water? Does it not exist? No, fish lives in water. Is a body suitable to live there? And we have a body suitable to live on this earth. And Krishna says, sun god has a body suitable to live on the sun planet. There is more than we can see. Materialist things, only that what I can see exists. But they can even not see their mind. Does their mind not exist? Does their intelligence not exist? How does it take place? That they found people, they were born and they had only 10% of their brain. But they were most intelligent people. How can you explain these things? No, the thinking, feeling, willing is done in the subtle body. Anyway, just to say there is more than that exists than what we can see. There are other dimensions of existence. And they were known, these dimensions, in the Vedic knowledge. And it's already there. Next verse, verse 2. Now, after Krishna has explained that Vivasvan explained his knowledge to Manu. Swayambhuva Manu. Who is Manu? Founder of mankind. The Manus are not human beings. The kind of demigod Manus I think there are 72 Manus in one day of Brahma. Or I think it's 14 Manus in the day of Brahma. How long is a day of Brahma? Someone knows? No, it's called, one day of Brahma is called a millennium. It's 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. 4 yugas. Yeah, and the 4 yugas are 4 million and so on. So that's a long time, one day. And its night is as long. Yes. But in that one day, there are 74 Manus. That's a lot. But still, the life of a Manu is still millions of years. It's very long. And the Manus, they gave instructions for mankind. You have heard of the Manu Samhita? Manu Samhita is called Dharma Shastra. It's instructions how man should live according to the religious principles. That everything is described there even heritage laws and marriage and all. It's all these laws are described there. And then he gave it to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is a human being. Interesting, so it came down. Now, verse 2 explains this further. Evam param praptam imam rachasyo vidu sakarne mata yoga nasta parantapa. That the supreme science was thus received to the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost. So Krishna said, yes, I explained that to the sun god, and it came down. So we have, that's our sampradaya, our parampara, comes from Brahma. From who got Brahma this knowledge? From whom did he get it? From Krishna. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Krishna gave him the knowledge to the heart. After millions of years of tapa, austerity, he gave him that knowledge. And Brahma gave it to his son, Narada. Narada gave it to Vyasadeva. Yeah. And so it came down to spiritual masters. That up to later to Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, and Ishvara Puri, Lord Chaitanya. Krishna is 2 times in our parampara. 1 time as Lord Chaitanya, and 1 time, and he gave it to Brahma also. Yeah, and then Lord Chaitanya gave to the 6 Goswamis. So it came down to different ways. Narottam Das, that Vishwanath Chakravarti, Baladeva Vidyabhusana. And then it came down, Baladeva Vidyabhusana, Charnadas Babaji. Charnadas Babaji, he gave it to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave it to Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, who gave it to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj gave it to Prabhupada. So, my spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, the disciple of Prabhupada, and he gave it to me. And therefore, we are authorized to speak because we are in the Guru Parampara. So here, Baladeva Vidyabhusana, thus Evam. The great saintly kings knew this yoga, which was received to the line of disciplic succession, starting from Vivashvan, and which was taught by their forefather, such as Ikshvaku. The sampradaya of this yoga in this world was broken by the influence of powerful time. So that's the point. Yoga nasta. The yoga, the knowledge, the connection. Yoga means connection. Nasta, broken. It was broken in the past. How does it become broken? If one deviates from it, one will start to tell something else than what one has heard from the spiritual master. That is broken and therefore Krishna said, it was broken, but I give it to you again. That was the whole purpose of Bhagavad-Gita, of the whole arrangement Krishna made. Arjuna was there to help Krishna to facilitate the speaking of Bhagavad-Gita. This is the most powerful knowledge because it's all absolute what Krishna says. So next slide. There we see Prabhupada and the Beatles. You see George Harrison, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, must have been 69, in Schloss, it was in Tittenhurst. It was an estate that was bought by the Beatles, by John Lennon. A beautiful estate with parks and all, that's aristocratic, high ceilings. It's in London, but it's near to Ascot. Ascot, for the English, they know, yeah, Ascot means the yearly royal horse races that are held in Ascot. That it was just near to that. And when Srila Prabhupada first time came to London, John Lennon arranged that they picked him up at the airport with a Rolls Royce, and they brought him straight to Tittenhurst. And there they had an interesting conversation. And I will.
Following is a conversation between His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and George Harrison, John Lennon, and Yoko Ono, recorded on September 11th, 1969, in London, England. I don't know which version it was.
So here, John Lennon said, yeah, there are so many versions of Bhagavad-Gita.
So many different translations.
And there are so many different translations.
And you can translate that.
Srila Prabhupada replied, yes, there are different translations. Therefore, I'm presenting you this edition, my edition, Bhagavad-Gita as it is.
Following is a conversation between His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and George Harrison, John Lennon, and Yoko Ono, recorded on September 11th, 1969, in London, England. I don't know which version it is. So many different translations. That's what I am given this edition of what it is. There are interpretations in many translations. There are not interpretations. Not only in other parts of the world, but in our own country also. Just like Mahatma Gandhi, that is this man, he had no interpretation. But the point is, interpretation well. Now, here is a fountain pen box. Everyone knows this is a fountain pen box. But if I say, no, this is something else, then my interpretation.
Yeah. So this conversation goes on for another 20 minutes. But Srila Prabhupada is explaining all these other, at that time there were more than 300 English translations of Bhagavad-Gita. And John Lennon is making the point, why another translation? Why did you do that? There are already 300 and so on. Srila Prabhupada said they are all interpretations. That is human interpretation. My translation is Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada had realized this Bhagavad-Gita. He was, as a pure devotee, I was directly in contact with Krishna. He knew the meaning of Bhagavad-Gita. And he knew the meaning as explained by the previous spiritual masters who were all self-realized. And it comes from Krishna. So he knows the goal of Bhagavad-Gita. Srila Prabhupada had realized, as explained by our previous acharyas, all these yogas explained in Bhagavad-Gita are stages to come to the highest yoga. So it's best to go directly to the highest yoga, Bhakti yoga. No need to take these stages and go life after life. But the knowledge in these stages is also important. That helps us in practicing Bhakti yoga. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada's commentaries will be focused directly on Bhakti. What's the use of these instructions in the light of Bhakti? And not what is the use within this limited scope of understanding of this yoga system, which lead to only a stage on the way to Bhakti. So he had realized Bhagavad-Gita, but to realize Bhagavad-Gita, there are conditions. And that Krishna speaks of in the next verse. Next slide. Saiba mayate dya yoga prakta puratana bhaktasi misakasti rasyam yetat uttamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is told to me because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So this verse, Krishna says, Rahasyam Uttamam. It's top secret. Only one with a purified heart can understand its meaning. There's no way to understand Bhagavad-Gita unless we become advanced. But we can understand it from a pure devotee in the line of this disciplic succession who explains it to us. These words are very powerful and we get the right point. But Krishna says here, Arjun, you can understand it because you are my devotee, you are my friend, you are sinless. Krishna is called Arjuna, Anaga, sinless before. These are conditions to understand the deeper meanings of Bhagavad-Gita. Next verse. So Baladeva VIDYABHUSANA gives very sweet and attractive comments. It says, Krishna and Arjuna, they were mutually attached as friends. A very deep relationship. That by the love of Arjuna for Krishna, Krishna became his chariot driver. is Bhaktavatsala, we have first, the well-wisher of his devotees. And when you start to develop love for Krishna, Krishna gives you the right understanding of Bhagavad-Gita. Bhagavad-Gita cannot remain just theoretical. That has no use. Learning the verses and repeating them as a parrot. No, learning the verse is good. You have the knowledge, but then you have also to know how to practice it. If you know how to practice it and you remember the verse, then you know how to use it as an instrument in your lives. That it's like my Guru Maharaj, he joined Mayapur because he was a Bengali. He joined Mayapur in 1976. He had never met Prabhupada, but he was reading Bhagavad-Gita for the first time, and at every page he was saying, now I understand. This is what I was seeking for. Now I understand. But then later, he met Srila Prabhupada in Allahabad during the Kumbh Mela and became his servant afterwards. And after 3 months serving Prabhupada, he understood. He came to the conclusion, I did not understand anything from Bhagavad Gita. Because he saw how Bhagavad Gita was lived. So therefore you have the book Bhagavad and you have the person Bhagavad. If you want to read more about that, you find that in the purport of the Bhagavatam verse, Nastaviya Sabhati Sunityam Bhagavata Sevya, Bhagavata Tamaske Bhakti Bhavati, in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. There Srila Prabhupada reads that, explains that. Transcendental knowledge must be understood from the person Bhagavad, the one who has realized the book. So that's an important aspect. Otherwise, you are seeing it at the, you are getting this knowledge and you remain on the service. During my PhD study, I met so many scholars in Bhagavad Gita, and they could quote Bhagavad Gita, but none of them could realize that they were not a body. And that's the first thing explained in Bhagavad Gita. For them, the Bhagavad Gita is only speculation. Something, an object to be criticized by me. And by that I get a good income. I can live on the cost of Bhagavad Gita. But that's not helpful. You have to get the right inner attitude. First, you have to become Krishna's devotee. You have to surrender to a spiritual master, who is a representative of Krishna, and serve him and inquire from him. And that will please the spiritual master, and then Krishna gives you knowledge. This knowledge is secret. Why? It's not understood by the brain. It has to be realized by the heart. In the heart you have the soul, that's where we are. We have to realize by our real self. And what is that realization? You get knowledge, realized knowledge. Krishna speaks about that, how he does that, give that. That realized knowledge is given by Krishna in the heart. We are in the heart, and Krishna is in the heart. And he gives that knowledge if he's pleased. if we serve him with a little love. Bhagavad-Gita 10:10, he will explain that. There, Krishna explains that Tesham Satayukatam Vatsam Pidapurvakam Dadami Buddhyogantam Yena Mamupiyant. One who serves me with a little love, a little affection, Priti Purvakam, a little love. Dadami, I give. Buddhi Yoga, this realized knowledge. And what is this realized knowledge? What is this realization? Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita, yes, that sense gratification is the cause of misery. So then, Krishna gives you that realization, and realization means, I don't want this sense gratification anymore. That eating, sleeping, and so on. You want to overcome that. And Krishna gives you the power and the insight and the realization by removing the lust in your heart. And that's real jnana, that's real knowledge. That's called in Sanskrit vidyam, realized knowledge. And that's different from ordinary scholarly knowledge. And therefore, Krishna gives that only when you become attached to him. And that attachment to Arjuna and Krishna is very deep. And therefore, Krishna said, therefore, you will be able to understand what I'm saying. Most people who are hearing from Bhagavad Gita, they don't understand much. It's some philosophy, yes. But Krishna does not want them to get into that. Krishna say, if you think you are the controller, you stay here, come, you control. And let's see. That. We have seen so many big controllers in this world. Now with the coronavirus, they are a little less in control. They can't even fight against this little virus. Practically completely destroyed by it. There you have this big man. Today, nothing anymore. That unless you become humble, Krishna doesn't give you this knowledge. If one is proud and puffed up, it's a sign of ignorance. Next slide. So, because Arjuna is surrendered to Krishna. Arjuna is going to follow Krishna's instructions. I've been preaching in many places in America, in Europe. So I was in America in a temple, and they are all from Indian backgrounds, Gujaratis. And you ask them, do you know Bhagavad-Gita? Say, yeah, we know Bhagavad-Gita. And what does Krishna say in Bhagavad-Gita? They don't know. Do you love Krishna? Yes, we love. But I'm not interested in what he has to say in Bhagavad-Gita. That's not going together. If a young boy and girl meet for the first time, love at first sight, be sure the young boy will be immediately remember the mobile number of the girl. No, not difficult to remember it. Will go very quick. So if you love Krishna, then you want to know what he has to say. You want to know, and you want to follow his instructions. So that's important for devotees. Yeah, and that I remember for the first time I was BHAGAVAD-GITA at my work. I was working, doing the accounts, and my BHAGAVAD-GITA was lying in my drawer, and I was learning the Sanskrit, and while I was doing my work, which was more or less automatically, I was repeating this verse in my. So you must want to learn it. Learn every day one verse, my Guru Maharaj said. All his disciples should learn every day one verse. Yeah, I learned one verse every 6 months. I could not do it, but at least if you learn one verse every 6 months, after a few years, you know some verses. Right? We should make an endeavor. And that's surrender. Surrender means following Krishna's instructions. Krishna gives us this bridge. This bridge are all these verses with its meaning from the previous acharyas, the previous spiritual masters. We must want to learn it. And that's surrender. Next verse, reflection. Am I a devotee? It's a tricky question. Krishna says, one who says that is my devotee is not my devotee. But one who is a devotee of my devotee, that's my real devotee. So we should not too quick see ourselves as a devotee. We may be devoted to prasadam. That's not so difficult. But to become a devotee of Krishna means really following his instructions. Therefore, do we accept Krishna as my ever well-wishing friend? Do we understand that if we follow Krishna's instructions, we are going to we will go back finally to the spiritual world? So to what extent do I understand the secrets of Bhagavad-Gita? First learn the verses, and then learn the meaning. And then apply the meaning, and then you will see the results. And then you start to learn something from Bhagavad Gita. But it starts with hearing and learning. So, am I surrendered to Lord Krishna? And do I act devoid of false ego with the full conviction that he's my protector and my maintainer? Am I following his instructions? This is a very important point. So we discussed the first 3 verses, which were about Bhagavad Gita. And next week, Thursday, we will continue with discussing the section 4.11, and that's about Krishna. Any questions? Right? Suppose you have something to think about. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.